I'm Euronews correspondent Vincent McAviney. I've just boarded a ferry bound for Ireland. The country still has an almost complete ban on the practice of abortion. As a result, every year thousands of women from both the Republic and Northern Ireland have to travel here to Great Britain to get a free, legal and safe abortion.
Every day, on average, 10 women will have to travel alone on ferries like this, returning within the day to save costs and protect their secret. 2 more risk a 14-year prison sentence to take safe but illegal abortion pills bought off the internet. Ireland was once seen as the most socially conservative country in Western Europe, but change has been swift. In 2015, it was the first country in the world to legalise same-sex marriage by referendum and elected a gay Prime Minister, Leo Varadkar, in 2017. But another referendum is needed to change its anti-abortion laws.
As Taoiseach, as a medical doctor, as a former Minister for Health, I don't believe we can persist with a situation whereby women in crisis are risking their lives through the use of unregulated medicines. And I don't believe the Constitution is the place for making absolute statements about medical, moral and legal issues.
Supporters say removing the 8th Amendment is an attempt to stop thousands of women from having to make this journey. But opponents are worried it could lead to so-called abortion on demand. Even talking publicly about having travelled for an abortion is controversial, as campaigner Janet O'Sullivan found out when she shared her own experience on social media. Now a mother of 2, she doesn't regret having an abortion at 19 after contraception failed, only the fact she had to travel for it.
I wasn't the only one on that flight that day. There were 4 other women also travelling over, and we were all kind of slightly weighing and slightly nervous, and you end up picking each other out on the flight. And even more so then when you get on the train at Stansted and you're heading into central London, you all get off at the same stop. And we were told we could bring the clinic and a taxi would come pick us up, and it was a minibus, and it was all of the women that have travelled over from Ireland going in together. It was tough because there were protesters outside. So they know what days that women from Ireland usually will travel on a Thursday or Friday, so we have the weekend to recover. So they knew that most likely the women going in that day were Irish, and they called it an Irish to us. They said, "Tá gra ar dia agus tusa agus a lanav," which is God loves you and your baby. Yeah, it was pretty distressing.
Whilst Janet has no regrets, there is still a deep climate of shame surrounding abortion in Ireland. Recently, hundreds of women have begun sharing similar stories on the In Her Shoes Facebook page, but they always do so anonymously. These stories have helped bring about this referendum. The repeal side are trying to frame the debate as an issue of women's healthcare. So I'm on the road again to try to understand the full impact of the 8th Amendment.
I'm on my way to Waterford in the south-east of Ireland to meet with 2 women who both tragically lost babies due to fetal abnormalities. One of the women wanted an abortion but was denied it and didn't feel fit enough to travel. The other woman was advised to have one but didn't want it. They're both now campaigning on opposite sides in this referendum.
My name is Vicky Wall. At 24 weeks into my pregnancy, my little girl was diagnosed with trisomy 18, Edwards syndrome, and the first thing we were offered was an abortion, which was never going to be an option for our little girl, who we call Leodin. And we decided to continue with the pregnancy, and it was lovely. It was hard, but it was lovely, and we took time off work, and we just spent time with her as a family, cherishing what time we did have with her. Even though it was very difficult, it was a very difficult time not knowing what the future would hold for Leodin, we still cherished what we had with her. So Leodin died at 32 weeks, and we went on to have her, give birth to her, and she was beautiful. She weighed 2 pounds, and she had black curly hair, and she had long black eyelashes, and she had my nose. And we got to take her home and have a big funeral for her and celebrate her short but very meaningful life.
I never caused Leodin any harm, and she never caused me any harm.
Vicky is now using her family's tragic experience to actively campaign to save the 8th Amendment and keep the ban on abortions.
I try to talk to people to let them know that women deserve more than abortion. It's a violent act on a woman to perform an abortion. It hurts women and it kills a baby. Women deserve better than that. We know that there's a very low incidence of abortion for cases of life-limiting conditions and the other cases of rape. They're very, very small. 19% of abortions are simply lifestyle choice. And that's wrong. That can't be right.
But not everyone who's been through this kind of experience feels the same way. On the other side of the campaign is Claire Cullen de Sol, who's pregnant for the 4th time. But when she and husband Wayne were expecting their 3rd child, a little girl called Alex, the 20-week scan revealed she had Pato syndrome. Their baby was unlikely to survive the pregnancy, so Claire asked to be induced to give birth. Doctors refused, stating that under the 8th Amendment, that would be considered an abortion. Unable to travel, Claire had to carry baby Alex for a further 6 weeks until she passed.
Something could have been done. And people knew. Everyone knew the state that I was in. People knew that I wasn't able to work. They knew that I wasn't able to look after my kids. They knew that I wasn't functioning. I was collapsing on the school run from panic attacks. I wasn't able to go shopping. I couldn't function and nobody cared. It didn't matter that I couldn't function. It didn't matter that I wasn't me. It didn't matter that my mental health was absolutely in tatters. All that mattered was that I was alive and she was alive because I was pregnant. And that's all that counts. When you're pregnant, you're alive, that's good enough for you. And it's not. It's not good enough for me, not good enough for other women, and it certainly will never be good enough for my daughters.
With the polls looking tight, a coalition of groups have formed the Together for Yes campaign to repeal the 8th Amendment by making sure these voices are heard. Abortion crosses political divides, and so Irish politicians have been given a free vote of conscience by their parties. Health Minister Simon Harris and several of his government colleagues gave their support for the campaign.
I find it slightly peculiar that people wouldn't want the people of Ireland to have their say, but I very much respect the right of TDs to vote in that way, and I don't intend to spend the next number of weeks kind of focusing on fringe issues or side issues. There's real substantive important issues relating to women and doctors in this country, and we need to discuss them.
Abortions happen. They happen here. That's a fact.
If voters do decide to repeal the 8th Amendment, that only removes the ban. It'll be for the politicians to decide on new abortion laws. So what exactly do campaigners want for Irish women? Alva Smith is the co-director of the Together for Yes campaign.
Our first job is to remove that prohibition from the Constitution and then to look at what kind of legislation we want to put in place and how we can best provide services that meet the very real, obvious needs of women in this country. So I can't second guess what that legislation is going to be. Our job is really to deal with the constitutional issue and to take women's bodies, women's reproductive lives out of the Constitution where they should never have been in the first place and ensure that there is proper health care policy and whatever regulation by legislation and medical regulation that we need.
Alva Smith believes the 8th Amendment banning abortion was inserted into the Constitution in 1983 under pressure from the Catholic Church. The Church is strongly defending the ban, but there have been significant social and demographic changes in Irish society in the last 35 years. Whilst the Catholic Church's power has diminished in this country, following the sexual abuse scandals and cover-ups of the 1990s, it certainly hasn't disappeared. I asked them for an interview for this programme, but they declined. The current ban on abortion also includes pregnancy as a result of rape and incest. John McGurk, Communications Director of Save the 8th, explained why the campaign believes even this needs to be upheld.
We feel very compassionate towards a woman who's in a difficult situation, and of course anybody does. Anybody who's human feels that kind of compassion. The problem is that in nearly every country where we talk about these cases, they are the prelude, and they constitute about 0.3% of all the abortions that take place. And the consequence of introducing abortion on the basis of those cases is that you get abortions in 99.7% of the cases where that isn't a factor, and it's a healthy pregnancy, and maybe it's a woman who feels all of a sudden that abortion is her only option. Our view is that every abortion is a tragedy for every woman. I mean, there's a reason the pro-choice campaign don't call themselves the pro-abortion campaign. It's because they recognise that abortion is something that women use as a last resort, that it's something that, you know, every time a woman has an abortion, it's because she feels she's been failed by society, by a family member, by maybe a partner who's abandoned her or anything like that. So we're saying, from our point of view, that we do not want to legitimise and normalise that.
The referendum will be held on the 25th of this month. For people on both sides of this argument, it boils down to what kind of society they want to live in. Family is at the heart of Irish life, so it's inevitable that this vote has sparked an emotive, personal and passionate debate.